I've done my hatching and now I'm starting my cross hatching. As you can see, I've already done the black one in, so now I'm doing the dark gray. And what I'm trying to do here is just get an even stroke. I'm going to move it down here where it's a little closer to my, to me, so that way it is more comfortable to draw. And I'm just going to make those same marks across here and try to keep them the same distance as the lines underneath. So that's how I'm going about creating my value, is using a steady stroke. That one didn't get so steady, got a little high, so I'm going to go in between to balance that out. And here we go again, starting again. This got a little too far apart there. Okay, feel a little bit better about the pace of my stroke, the frequency of my stroke, the rhythm, if you will. That's getting a little far down there, so it's going to give an uneven look. So yes, that's a little too close. Those are getting a little too close. And I'm going to put those a little closer so it looks a little more even. Nope. All right. Trying to get that even pace going back again, because I've given a little bit too much darkness there, as you can see. If it gets uneven, it gets a little out of one area, will look darker. It won't look quite as even toned as it could. So if you try to keep those strokes together, the closer you are with each rhythm, or as the more consistent rather, then the more consistent your surface is going to be. That looks okay. It's a little too heavy in some of the areas. I think I've got room to go in and try to even that up, so that way it's not, but I might wind up jacking it up further. Yeah, so looks like I'm jacking it up just a little. Yep. All right, I think it can handle that. Get in there a little more in between some of my lines. Oops. Yeah, so you can and one more in there to even that up a little bit. I can't say that's the most even, but it's there anyway. Yeah, it's got a little bit too much density in through there to be as even as it should be. Maybe I can balance some of that out going back the other direction. So put a little bit more weight in here and not necessarily take it all the way to through those lines, so that way I even it up a little bit more, get a little more balanced in here by balancing the white versus black openings on my paper. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more to try to get that weave to be a little more consistent. Maybe I'll lift my pencil, or pen rather, through, go back in and just maybe address some areas that in here, go in here. It's definitely, so I think I like that weave better, but it did get a little too dark as far as I'm concerned. But c'est la vie. I'm going to use that same paste that I used up here for my cross hatching down here. Start about right here. And you see I'm still using my cloth because that's just the habit I like to keep. From end to end, going through end to end. And trying to keep a fairly even pace there. This one I think is going to be a little easier than the dark gray. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. That's okay. Yes, and one more. Turn the paper again to go the other direction and use that same spacing. Got a bad elbow, so that hurt. Just gonna try again. There we go. Okay. And you can even use the lines you've already made to help you with your pace. See, I'm just going and connecting lines that are already there, and that's sort of like a little cheater pace or rhythm. Go here, and I'm just going to connect to the lines that I've already got there. Connect to that line, connect to that line, connect to that line, and that already just gives me a nice little even pace. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go through and use this same spacing that I did there. Let it dry just a little. It's a good time to drink a cup of coffee. Coffee is great with art for some reason. All right, I feel that's going to be dry enough, so here we go. I'm going to go in and make my marks as far apart as I did the ones above, approximately. Yeah, so that gives me a nice amount of white space in there. Overall, it has much more white space than black space. Then I'm going to go back in and do the other direction, and I'll just use that same method where I go in and I'm going to use those lines I've already established to help me gauge where I might put my crosses. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that, and there's my cross hatching, and my cross hatching and my hatching are done. Now I'm going to do scumbling, and that's fun because scumbling is just scribbling. And so I can go in here and I'm going to do my dark first. Let's see. Yes. And scumbling is just going back and forth and making just little repetitive type of marks. Maybe even little squiggles. So I'm just layering mine like this. Scumbling isn't really in my repertoire. I like marks a little more organized, less chaotic. So I'm going to go the other direction too with the scumbling to really get a tighter weave in here so it looks more black. Again, just making like little loop-de-loop kind of circles. Elongated circles is what I'm doing, but I'm going to also be careful when I get over to my edges to make sure that I don't get outside of my edges. I jacked this up here because I went back in with a ruler and went too high. But, you know, these are the things that we do, and if I was grading myself, I'd probably think about grading down for that. But if I'm grading you, I don't know how hard I will be. Don't think I'm going to be as hard grading other ones as I am on myself. So I'm just going in there doing that scumbling loop-de-loop kind of thing. Doing a modified here just to go up and keep that encapsulated in its nice little square shape going along there. And I'm going to go back in and like go in a little darker. I'm just coloring this in with circles, 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 circles. I see areas that look too white. They've got just too much of that paper showing through. I'm going to go back in and cover that, turning it to its side. Make sure you can still see that. Turning it to its side. It's got too many openings over here. See way too much of the white of the paper peeking through, and it's going to influence my value and make it look lighter than I want it to. And I want like a nice solid heavy black, so that way all of my blacks stay consistent. So again, I'm going to go back in and do my cross hatching, not cross hatching, my scumbling. And again, this is just doing sort of a little loop-de-loop type of thing here. I'm going to go up in the corner and make my little curly Q loops. And there's no specific pattern, but scumbling, it's, you know, it can just be this little looping, circling type of action. And you can make yours however you want. You can go back over it a couple times. Make sure you don't get too dark. Like I feel like I might be getting a little too dark in here because I've done a little bit too much overlap. So I should have left mine, I feel like I should have left them just a little bit more open. I've closed them a little bit too much, in my opinion. So, but I still think it's going to be lighter than the square next to it. So overall, it'll be okay, but I'm not in love with it. So far I think I like cross hatching the most. And I know stippling is going to be a little bugaboo. Okay, there we are with my second darkest square. Yeah, I don't like the feel of the scumble either. I don't like that for some reason. But I've got, yeah, that's just not a pattern I enjoy at all. All right, I'm going to let that dry just a little. Then go back over this and remember to keep my loops a lot more open. I'm going to look to this to help inform me about like what size my loops should be, and then I'm going to use that and keep my weave more open than I did with the one next to it. So I'm just looping, 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 loopy, loopy, loop. All kinds of loops and more loops. My loops are larger, or rather smaller, than the ones we looked at, the examples I showed you in the book, but that's just because that's my pace. So it doesn't have to be any particular pace, you know, it can be your own. The book does not, it's real close, but you get to modify it where you still stay within the realm of the objectives, but now it's a little bit closer to yours. Okay, and then these I'm going to make really big and far apart and start in here and go out and keep them really big. My loops here, keep them really big. And again, like I said, I'm looking at the area above and trying to keep my loops within that type of spacing, so that way it doesn't get so much coverage that it goes too dark. And just doing a little modified so that way I can fill in all of my area, and I think that's okay too. This I think these wind up being much darker than the ones above, And so I like that because like both of these, the hatching and the cross hatching, I feel like I can control the values better than with scumbling. And stippling is, it's a real, I believe I can control the values really nicely, but it is a just really time consuming. So I'm going to put my marks down. Stippling is just basically where you put black dots down, and the closer you put them to one another, the more dense the value is going to be, the darker the value. So you can see how this is just a real hard, tedious little way to put value into a given shape or area. It's really tedious, more tedious than the other ones. So again, if you try to go fast, you get the little tails. You can lose that tail effect in the more dense, the black ones, but if you try to get away with that with the other areas, it'll reveal itself really quickly, but the tails won't reveal themselves too quickly in the loaded area. Again, you see just how hard it is to plant that. You can try making little circle marks instead of the planting your dots like I was before. Maybe make them a little bigger. Just really try to get that frequency happening. Get them really dancing close together. Hard, hard, hard. And to still keep it looking like dots. So this is, again, why it's so, it's a really tedious process. Alright. It's going to take me forever to build that up. So I'm going to switch to a different kind, a time-lapse video for this one.